All right, Shalom. Giving all praises, all glory, all honors unto Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai by Hashem Rakapadash. Double honors to the apostles, elder bishops, great millstone. Peace and blessings to the 144,000 rest of the hope elect out there. This is your brother, the priest Desire One from GMS Atlanta. Back with another edifying video. And I have here an article from the Associated Press. And it says, from Tokyo to Tehran to LA, Trump's policies loom over May Day marches. And as you can see here, there's a number of different protests. There are a lot of things happening in the streets. This here is out of Argentina. Okay. Looks like there's more images. Let's see. Yep. So that was Argentina. You have, I believe, let me see here. Well, I guess it's a video, but you can see the different images here. We make America work, United States Constitution, Declaration of Independence. So there's protests that are happening around the world. Okay. This here's in Iraq. This here's in Turkey. And this was May 1st. So a few days ago. Okay. Now this is coming out of Paris, right? Paris. It says French union leaders condemn the Trumpization of world politics, while in Italy, May Day protesters paraded a puppet of the American president through the streets of Turin. Across continents, hundreds of thousands turned out for Thursday's rallies, marking International Workers' Day, many united in anger over U.S. President Donald Trump's agenda, from aggressive terrorists stoking fears of global economic turmoil to immigration crackdowns. In the U.S., organizers framed this year's protest as a pushback against what they called a sweeping assault on labor protections, diversity initiatives, and federal employees. So the whole world is looking down on this guy Trump. You know, looking at this man as the enemy. Okay, and not just Trump, but the U.S. as well, you know, but on the whole, Trump is not very well liked, you know, and, you know, this is also another reason why we here at GMS, we say that this guy Trump will have to be Nero, the emperor, the Roman Emperor Nero in the reincarnation, for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons is if you have a spiritual eye and you have an understanding of history, Nero back in Rome, he was liked by the people at first, which that's why you got MAGA and these different supporters of Trump, so-called black and white, around America that voted him into U.S. presidential office. He was well liked, but towards the end of his years, Nero in Rome, he was well liked, and then towards the end of his years, he was pretty much a public enemy. You know, everyone disliked him. So history repeats itself. There's no new thing under the sun, as it says in the book of Ecclesiastes. So these protests are a sign of, I just want to make that point, but these protests are a sign of the end of this society. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit more. It says, in Germany, union leaders warned that extended work days and rising anti-immigrant sentiment were dismantling labor protections. In Bern, Switzerland, thousands marched behind banners denouncing fascism and war, part of a wider backlash against the global surge of hard-right politics. So let's go into the scriptures. Let's go into the Apocrypha. And let's get some precepts to, you know, what we're seeing in the world today, because everything is predicated off of Bible prophecy. Okay? This is Second Ezra, in the Apocrypha, the 9th chapter. I'm sorry, 15th chapter. What's 19 2? 9 2. I can read it real quick. I'll get to the point. Second Ezra 9 and 3. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes, and there has been a number of different major earthquakes around the world recently, it says, and uproars of the people in the world. What's an uproar? An uproar of these different nations and their citizens marching and creating mass protests against this society, against the ruling powers in their countries and cities around the world. They're uproar. They have something to say. Okay, they're protesting. That is a sign that we're to look for. Okay? It says, then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. That's prophecy. Okay? And the true prophecies can only be found in the Holy Bible. Okay? It says, for like as all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest. So we're looking at the end of this current world. This current age. Okay? This current time period, this current society is coming to an end. It says, even so, the times also of the highest, so the time is in the hands of the Most High, have plain beginnings in wonder and powerful works and endings in effects and signs. And we're seeing the effects and signs manifesting now. Now I want to go to same book, but the 15th chapter. All right. Let's see. What is it? Around the 20th verse. Okay, I'm sorry. A little bit further up. 16. Okay, I get the point here. Second Ezra 15 and 16. For there shall be sedition among men, and sedition is an uprising, right, against the government. When you stand up against the ruling powers, right, the powers that be. It says, for there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. Right, there was a number of different protests around the world before, where they was not just marching in the streets, but they were actually going to government buildings and these different parliaments and the homes of prime ministers. And here in the U.S., January 6th, the last time Trump was in office, you had a major I'll say situation that happened at the U.S. Capitol. Okay? The Capitol riots, as they call it. And they were calling that sedition at the time. That was in the news. Sedition at the Capitol. So that's prophecy being fulfilled. Okay? It says, they shall not regard their kings nor princes, which are what? The ruling powers. They're not regarding these kings, these princes, these presidents, prime ministers. These different citizens are saying, listen, we have been oppressed by you, and we're not going to have it any longer. It says, in the course of their actions shall stand in their power. So as you can see in the article that I just showed, that they're having to take matters so-called into their own hands and voice their opinion. Right now it's picket signs, but eventually it's going to be full-blown violent riots in these streets. Verse 17, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. That's when you got martial law in the streets. Curfews are set up. Checkpoints are set up. Military and certain law enforcement officers are patrolling the streets. That happened in 2020. Okay? But this is going to be worse. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. And eventually all-out chaos and anarchy is going to implode in the U.S. and around the world. Okay? Now, speaking of that, this is what Trump has done recently. This is from Rolling Stone. It says Trump issues executive order ramping up the American police state. So there's a very heavy sentiment of Trump eventually having to use his executive power to police the streets in a more severe form in the near future because of these protests are happening, because of these things that are happening around the world. It says the order directs the government to provide legal resources to police officers accused of wrongdoing. So let me read some of this. And you got to subscribe, but I'll just read a little bit. It says, during Donald Trump's final weeks of his 2024 re-election campaign, he fantasized about one really violent day of policing as an answer to eradicating crime in America. Okay, so this is the point. So he wants to give power to the police officers, legal power, and them to basically be able to use violence to shut things down, to shut these citizens down, right? Which is what essentially martial law. Okay. And this was now Trump has been in office now over 100 days. It says, this is also from the Associated Press, Trump made big promises and moved at frenetic speed. 100 days in, here's what he's done and not done. And this guy is totally breaking this country down. He's breaking things down economically, military-wise, politically. This country is divided. You got the tariffs. It says, the weeks since President Donald Trump returned to office have been a whirlwind of activity to show Americans that his administration is relentlessly pursuing his promises. Oh, and the first major thing was what? Deportation of the so-called Hispanic people in this country, and and certain so-called Black Caribbean foreigners in this country, which are Israelites, by the way, whether they be so-called Haitians or Jamaicans, and then you have the other Caribbean islands, right? Dominicans, so-called Mexicans, so forth and so on. Central Americans, they're all being deported into another country, back home. It says, with a compliant Republican-controlled Congress, Trump has had a free hand to begin overhauling the federal government and upending foreign policy. As Trump hits his 100th day in office Tuesday, his imprint is everywhere. But the long-term impact is often unclear. Well, we know eventually it's going to lead to this place, America totally breaking down, which is in the scriptures. And this guy has to be Nero, man. This guy Trump he's in the spirit of an ancient Roman emperor. Totally having the kingship and authority in his power, and that's how he's ruling now. Okay. Just a number of different things. I'm not going to read all of this. You get the point. If you haven't been paying attention, he's cracked down on illegal immigration. If you haven't been paying attention to what's going on, you're totally lost. That whole spirit. And listen, man, that whole spirit of not watching the news and not knowing what's going on in U.S. and world politics, man, that spirit is dead, man. If you're in that spirit, then you deserve what evil the Lord brings you, because you should be paying attention. Okay? We're looking at total chaos getting ready to erupt in America and around the world, and you want to be stupid, okay? Well, things are going to happen that are going to break things down. End time headlines. This is a massive fires break out in Jerusalem. I want to speak on this too. Well, this just proves. Well, I'll give a precept. So you got fires breaking out in Jerusalem. Today marked a somber yet resilient Memorial Day in Israel, overshadowed by massive wildfires near Jerusalem and escalating regional tensions. As the nation transitioned from honoring its fallen soldiers and terror victims to celebrating its 77th Independence Day, a series of events highlighted both internal challenges and external pressures. There's a fire that broke out. What I want to get, because they're warring. It's war. So let me get a precept on this. This is the book of Isaiah, 2nd chapter. Quick precept. Isaiah 2 and 3, and many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the power of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. So this is a prophecy that is to come to pass. But according to these small hats, it's supposed to be fulfilled, because they claim that the people of Jerusalem are back in their land. It says, For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Well, the word of the Lord is not coming from Jerusalem. The only thing that's coming from Jerusalem right now is fire and destruction and war. Right? Let's go back. Verse 4, And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, which is a farming tool, and their spears, which is a weapon, into pruning hooks, another farming tool. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. But at this time, the people in the land are causing war and chaos. So has that been truly fulfilled? No, it has not. All right, so now you got to question, well, who's in that land, really? And that's all I'm gonna say on that. Hey man, we're in the time of really the end of Esau. Okay, Esau is the so-called white man, whether they call themselves Israeli or whether they call themselves Australian, whether they call themselves Russian, whether they call themselves American or European. They're all Edomites. Okay, they're all from the stock of Esau. And so I'm gonna end off on this scripture because this world has to go. We're in the end now, the end of the white man's world. This is 2nd Esdras chapter 6 and 8. And he said unto me, From Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. For Esau is the end of the world, this age, this society, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So we're in the time of the end of this world, which proves that Esau, Edom, is still around. And we're waiting for the beginning of a new world, a new society, where the true people of Jerusalem, the true Israelites, Jacob is ruling, which are the so-called black Hispanics and Native Americans. So I just want to speak on that. There's, a lot of things happening around the world. America and this whole so-called planet is not so-called planet, but the white man, so-called white man, he's destroyed this planet, and his rulership is coming to an end. Right? If you look at the state of the world today, the current news, everyone is against, as you can see, against the people in Jerusalem and America. Okay? Matter of fact, I'll end it with one more precept. Jeremiah 49. This is Jeremiah 49, prophecy against Edom. I believe it was 16. No, let me see. Jeremiah 49 and 20. Therefore, hear the counsel of the Lord Yahweh that he had taken against Edom, and his purposes that he had purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Teman was a town in the land of Edom, which the modern day Teman, modern day Edom is America and these European countries, Germany and so forth. France, wherever he's at, that's, he's made, the so-called white man has made these different countries and regions his land. So the Lord said, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Who's the least of the so-called white people? The people over in Jerusalem today with the small hats. They're going to draw America and these other Edomites out in the war. All right? Mainly America. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. So not only is Jerusalem, as it's on fire now, but this land is going to totally be destroyed. America as well will be totally destroyed. Okay? I said one more, but I have to go. I must needs go to the next chapter. Jeremiah chapter 15, verse 46 or 45. Same thing, but it's going to let you know who's being drawn out. What part of Edom is going to be drawn out and be destroyed with the small hats over there in Jerusalem. This is Jeremiah 15 and 45. Therefore hear ye the counsel of the Lord Yahweh by Shem Yahushai that he had taken against Babylon. Babylon is the prophetic name for America, the U.S., United States. So the Lord is against this country. And his purposes that he had purposed against the land of the Chaldeans, which were the ruling class, the witches, the warlocks, those that were in power politically and religiously, spiritually, the Illuminati, the international bankers, the ones that set this country/corporation up. The Lord has a purpose against them. It said, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Once again, America's going to be drawn into World War III, Armageddon, through the people in Jerusalem today, the Israelis, into eventual destruction. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them, because that land is going to be destroyed, but Jerusalem will be rebuilt when Isaiah the 2nd chapter is fully manifested, when it truly is manifested and comes to pass, truly, and America is going to be destroyed. Verse 46, at the noise of the taking of Babylon, the earth is moved. Precept for this is Revelation, the 18th chapter. And the cry is heard among the nations. All these nations, China, here it is, they're having tariffs, wars, or economic wars with America, but they need America to be rich. So once this place is destroyed, all these countries that make money, all these nations that make money off of America, Babylon, they're gonna mourn and they're gonna be, sad. But that's gonna be the end fate for this place, and this whole society is gonna be, the white man's world is gonna be annihilated, done away with. Not the planet Earth, but his world. And then that's when you're gonna have the elect of the so-called Black Spaniards and Native Americans, which are the true Israelites, come down from heaven out of so-called UFOs. The Heavenly Father is going to send his son back, Yahweh Shai, to take over the world, the planet. And that will begin the setting up of Jacob, the beginning that followeth, and the kingdom of heaven for Israel, Yasha Allah, on earth. So with that, hope this is edifying. Shalom.